Welcome to the presentation on interest rate swaps. This is part of the FRM Part 1, Financial Markets and Products. Now, interest rate swaps, in this particular presentation, we'll discuss about what is the interest rate swap structure and how interest rate swaps are priced and how interest rate swaps are valued. So, in interest rate swap structure, uh, as you all know, the swap in English means exchange. So, you are giving something and you are receiving something. So it essentially means exchange of two sets of cash flows. One you pay and the other you receive in case of financial market swaps. And there are many types of swaps. For example, interest rate swaps, cross-currency swaps, equity swaps, credit default swaps, total return swaps, forex swaps, etc. Today we'll be focusing mostly on interest rate swaps. So interest rate swaps are exchange in interest rate swaps. So typically fixed rate of interest in one leg and floating rate of interest in another. And interest rate swaps with both legs are floating, they are known as basis swaps. So the floating legs can be on different benchmarks with some spread on one or both the legs. And interest rate swaps are used to hedge the interest rate risks. Now, typically a borrower expecting a rise in interest rates would like to receive the floating and pay a fixed in interest rate swap in order to hedge the rising interest rates. Because if the interest rate is expected to increase, the borrower has to pay a higher interest to the lender. So in order to hedge that particular risk in the interest rate swap, they would like to receive the floating. Because if interest rate is expected to increase, they will be receiving more and pay fixed, which anyway is a fixed amount, in order to hedge that rising interest rates. Whereas a lender expecting a lower interest rates would like to receive fixed and pay floating in an interest rate swap in order to hedge the falling interest rates. So a lender, if he expects a lower interest rate, so they would like to receive the fixed and pay the floating because they expect interest rates to come down. So they have to pay a lower amount, a lower rate to the counterparty in the swap in order to hedge that risk in the swap. And there are other variants like of IRS, like the principal only swap, or coupon only swap, amortizing swap, accrediting swap, roller coaster swap, and so on and so forth. These will be subsequently discussed in later videos. So as far as tabular structure in interest rate swap, counterparty A is either pays fixed or floating based on the benchmark. There are periodic cash flows and usually no principal exchange. Whereas on the other hand, counterparty B receives fixed if counterparty A pays fixed, or floating. So if counterparty B receives floating, if counterparty A pays floating. So on the same benchmark. And cash flow periodicity is usually with some same frequency, be it semi-annual or annual, and usually with the same frequency. There can be different frequencies as well. And usually there's no principal exchange. Now we come to interest rate swap pricing. The key principle behind interest rate swap pricing is that the present value of both the legs at the start of the swap should be equal, or in other words, the net present value should be equal to 0 at the start of the swap, so that neither counterparty should be in a position to gain or lose at the start of the swap. So for the both counterparties to start on an equal footing, neither party should be in a position to gain or lose as you start an interest rate swap. So that's only possible if at the start of the interest rate swap, if the net present value is computed as 0. So interest rate swap pricing means arriving at the fixed rate of interest, or given a fixed rate of interest, arriving at the spread over and above the benchmark, which would make the NPV 0. And 0 rates should always be considered for computing the discount factors, which are multiplied to the cash flows to get the present values. So forward rates to be considered in order to compute the floating rate cash flows. As we have seen in the earlier video, that Zero coupon yield curves need to be considered for pricing and valuation of instruments like interest rate swaps and all kind of derivative instruments. So net cash flows can be computed for cash flows occurring at the same time, and then present value of the cash flows computed. And present value of individual legs should be computed for cash flows occurring at different point of time, and then NPV computed. So if you have the cash flows occurring at the same time, then the net value cash flow can be computed, and then the present value can be computed. Whereas if the cash flows are occurring at different point of time, it's better to compute the present value of individual legs and then compute the net present value. An advanced swap is a type of swap where at any given point of time, the next floating rate is known. Whereas an arrear swap is a type of swap where at any given point of time, the next floating rate is also not known. So usually the rate applicable 2 days before the next settlement date is taken as the next floating rate. In many geographies, the in-area swap is not being allowed to be traded, but advanced swap is a very fairly simple swap, which is allowed to be traded in many markets. So spread can be positive as well as negative, and positive spread on the basis swap is generally added to the benchmark, having a lower value. So let's see an example of interest rate swap pricing. So in this particular swap, interest rate swap, we have considered a USD interest rate swap, simple interest rate swap. And so the currency is USD, the notional value, which is the principal value. Why it's notional? Because this is not exchange. Principal is not exchanged in interest rate swap. In currency swaps, principal is exchanged. In interest rate swap, only the cash flows are exchanged. The interest is exchanged, coupon is exchanged. So this is 100 million notional value, 3-year tenor. Suppose this counterparty is receiving fixed. So receiving fixed as say 0.1680. Suppose instead of receiving fixed 0.1680, it would have received 0.2, say. So as you can see here, if you received higher than what you ideally should have received, NPV is giving a positive value, which is not the right principle. The right principle of pricing the swap is that at the start of the swap, the NPV should be equal to 0, and thereby whatever the rate, fixed rate is, that's what you arrive at the swap pricing. So in this case, floating benchmark is a 1-year benchmark. Frequency is say annual. Annually you get the cash flows. Swap start date was 31st December 2020, and the swap maturity date is 31st December 2023. This is an advanced swap. That means at any given point of time, the first floating rate is known. So the first floating rate was known as 0.1120. So that is typically the 1-year rate. This is the yield curve as on 31st December 2020. So the normal yield curve is 1 year 0.1120, 2 year 0.1230, and 3 year 0.1680. From there, the spot yield curves are computed. The first year spot yield curve is same as the first year normal yield curve, which is 0.1120. The second and third year is computed using the bootstrapping method, which we had discussed earlier. So you have the discount factors, which is based on the yield curves. We are using discrete compounding. So the formula is 1 divided by 1 plus rate of interest, in this case a spot rate, rest to the power time period, in this case given in column A. And subsequently all the other discount factors are the same particular formula. And par value is there to compute the spot yield curve. So the first year there's only one cash flow, so B2 plus 100, which is in this case 1 year rate is 0.1120. So on 100 the currency, you have principal of par value, you're getting 0.1120. So 0.1120 and 100, that is 100.1120 multiplied by E2, which is a discounting factor, 1 year discount factor, to get the par value of 100. Second year, you're getting 2 cash flows. So first year, you're getting 0.1230 because 2-year rate is 0.1230. That means first year on 100, you're getting 0.1230. So that is multiplied by the first year discount factor. As you can see, B3 multiplied by E2. So you get the present value of the first year. Second year, the cash flow is 0.1230 plus 100, which is multiplied by E3, which is the second year discount factor. And then par value is computed using bootstrapping method. In macro Excel, you have solver or goal seek you can use to compute the par value. And similarly, the third year, the cash flows, there are three cash flows. The first year you're getting 0.1680 because 3-year rate is 0.1680. So 0.1680 multiplied by E2, which is the first year discount factor. Second year, you're also getting on 100, you're getting 0.1680, which is again multiplied by the second year discount factor, which is given in E3. And third year, you're getting 0.1680 plus the 100 par value redemption. So that is multiplied by the third year discount factor, which is 0.9950. And get the par value, which is equated to 100 to arrive at the spot rates. So in this case, the cash flow dates are 31st December 2021, 31st December 2022, and 31st December 2023. The year fracs essentially is a period from the start date or settlement date or valuation date till the cash flow dates. So in this case, typically 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. Some fraction is there because of the fact that the conventions which are being used is slightly different in the sense that you're using, for USD, you're using the actual by the basis you're taking as 2, which as you can see here, actual by actual. So actual by actual is typically the convention which is being used for the USD day count convention, discount factors. So that means the actual number of days between two cash flows is considered and the actual number of days in a year is considered. So that's the reason there's some slight difference in the decimal. Period essentially is a time period for which the cash flows are computed. So in this case, for the first cash flow 1.0139, second also 1.0139, and third also 1.0139. So there's a similarity because in between there was no leap year. Leap year was in last year, that is 2020. So in that case, 1 day additional day is factored into. So in this case, received cash flows, as you can see, is nothing but the principal, which is B6, which is 100 million, multiplied by the rate. In this case, suppose we had estimated as 0.20 as a rate, multiplied by the period, which is 1.0139. So in this case, these are the received cash flows in USD for all the 3 years. As you can see, this is receive is fixed, so all the cash flows are same. And pay cash flows is in floating, so 1 year benchmark. So the first year rate is given as 0.1120. That's also 1 year rate, which is being used here for the first year cash flow. So principal, which is given in B6, 100 million, multiplied by the 1 year rate 0.1120 multiplied by the period, that is 0.0139. Now the issue is with the second year cash flows and the third year cash flows. Now this is on the 1 year benchmark. That means in this case also to compute the interest is same formula, principal, which is given 100 million multiplied by some rate of interest. We'll come to that how this rate of interest is calculated, multiplied by the time period, which is 1.0139. Now coming to this rate of interest, this rate of interest is the rate of interest which is to be used, that is the expected 1 year rate after 1 year, which is essentially the forward yield curve after 1 year. So this is the forward yield curve after 1 year, which is 0.1340. So 0.1340, how this is computed? This is computed by using the function of the computation of forward yield curve, which is discount factor 1 divided by discount factor 2, raised to the power 1 divided by T2 minus T1 minus 1. The last 100 is just to convert that into a number. Similarly, the second year, the rate of interest, which is given in D4, which is 0.2580, is essentially the 1 year rate after 2 years. So expected 1 year rate after 2 years, which is computed here by E3 by E4, which is discount factor 2 by discount factor 3 divided by raised to the power 1 divided by E3 less T1, the third year less second year minus 1, and lastly multiplied by 100 is to convert that into a number. So 0.1340 is a 1 year rate after 1 year, and 0.2583 is a 1 year rate after 2 years. So these are being used to compute the pay cash flows because pay your floating rate benchmark. And then you're calculating the net cash flow, which is nothing but the difference between how much you're receiving and how much you're paying. So in this case, D less E. So as you can see, first year you're getting positive, second year also positive, and third year you're getting negative because the pay is more than the receive. And lastly, you calculate the present value of the net cash flows. So these net cash flows are multiplied by the respective discount factor. This is a 1-year discount factor, which is 0.9989. The 2-year discount factor is 0.9979, and 3-year discount factor is 0.9950. You are using to calculate the PV of the net cash flows for 1 year, 2 year, and 3 year. And finally, you sum all these net cash flows, PV of the net cash flows for the various years. And as you mentioned, that the principle of the pricing of interest rate swap is that at the start of the swap, the NPV should be equal to 0. So what you can do is that you can use in Microsoft Excel, you can use either solver, or in what if analysis, the goal seek. Both are in the column tab data. Solver, as mentioned, is much more precise. So this particular cell, this has to a value of 0. By changing what cell, I need to change my fixed rate. So as you can see here, you can solve, and then the calculator finds out a solution of 0.1680, which in this case is nothing but my third year rate in a normal yield curve. So as you can see here, you can essentially kind of see that your calculations are is correct, because you ultimately arrive at the 3-year rate of the 3-year rate of the normal yield curve, which should ideally be the case here. So using this particular rate, you get the NPV equal to 0. So this is how you price a swap, and you arrive at the fixed rate of interest. When you're pricing a swap, it means how much is a fixed rate, either you're paying or receiving. In this case, receiving. Next, we come to IRS valuation. So what does IRS valuation mean? So interest rate swap valuation tantamount to finding out the NPV of the swap after the swap has been entered into by both counterparties. So if both the counterparties have entered into the swap, at the start of the swap, NPV is equal to 0. Now, subsequently, as the interest rates either moves up or goes down, one counterparty is gaining and the other counterparty is losing. So if interest rates rise, the counterparty receiving floating rate of interest is expected to have a positive mark-to-market MTM value, and if interest rates fall, the counterparty paying floating rate of interest is expected to have a positive MTM. Now, so the counterparty paying fixed rate of interest is said to have entered into a pair swap, and the counterparty receiving fixed rate of interest is said to have entered into a receiver swap. This is a typical nomenclature terminology which is being used. Pair swap is where you pay fixed, and receiver swap where you receive fixed. Cash flows need to be computed for the entire period of time, that is between 2 consecutive cash flow dates, but the present value of the cash flows needs to be computed from the valuation date or the settlement date till the respective cash flow dates. So for this reason, exact discount factors and hence exact spot rates needs to be computed from the valuation date or settlement date till the respective cash flow dates. And usually these intervals are not standard depending upon the valuation date. And hence exact yield needs to be computed from the standard yield curves by interpolation or extrapolation, as the case may be. And same principles of pricing are used to order to value the swap at a future valuation date or settlement date after the swap has been dealt with by both counterparties. This is very essential when you will be discussing about potential future exposure, because you need to find out the value of your swap at a future date as well. This will be coming under the counterparty credit risk part. Now let's see the IRS valuation part. So we take the similar kind of example in the IRS pricing, but only thing is that we mentioned that this particular swap was dealt as on 30th June 2020. And we are valuing this as on the 31st December 2020. So the same swap, USD currency, notional value 100 million, 3-year swap at the start, we see fixed of 0.1760. So this must have been the 3-year rate at the start of the swap, which is 30th June 2020. Now, as you can see here, now the 3-year rate means after 31st December is 0.1680. So the yields have typically come down. So first year rate also was 0.1120 as of 31st December, whereas first year 1-year rate was 0.1600. So the yield interest rates have come down. So, and Generally speaking, the interest rates have come down, and this counterparty is essentially receiving fixed and paying floating, the 1-year benchmark. So if they're paying floating, and if the interest rates have come down, you expect a positive MTM, and that's what is being seen here also in our calculation, that it is a positive MTM of 54,811 USD. So the same things being there. So swap start date, swap maturity date 3 years from the swap start date. Valuation date is of 31st December 2020. It's an advanced swap. The first floating rate was 0.1600, which would have been the 1-year rate as on 30th June 2020. So we compute the cash flow days 30th June 2021, 30th June 2022, and 30th June 2023. Year frac essentially from the valuation date, which is 31st December. So from 31st December 2020 to all these dates are typically half year, 1.5 year, and 2.5 year. So there's some difference because of the day count conventions which is being used, which is actual by actual. Now, period essentially is the time period for the cash flows, which is the same as earlier pricing, which is 1.0130, which is the 1 year, and the 1 year. Now, here the difference is the spot yield curve is essentially being considered here. Now on top, this is essentially the yield curve as on the valuation date. So as on valuation, which is 31st December 2020, we have the normal yield curve. From there, we calculate the spot yield curve using bootstrapping, as we had done in the pricing. But these, and so we have to use these spot rates. But these spot rates are for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. What we need is a spot rate for 0.5 years, 1.5 years, and 2.5 years. So what we can do is that you can interpolate or extrapolate as the case may be. So the formula remains the same. So what you can do is that you can say that, say suppose the first rate, which is C2, so 0.1120 plus something. So what is that something? The plus something is difference between the two rates. In this case, C3 the C2, which is 0.1230 and 0.1120, divided by the difference between the two tenors. In this case, 2 year and 1 year, A3 minus A2. So this part, C3 less C2 divided by A3 less A2, is the difference between the yield for 1 unit change in the year. So this is multiplied by the difference, in this case, like in this case, B18 less A2 is 1 year. So for the 0.5 year difference, what is the difference, or what is the adjustment which you need to make with this particular yield curve? So this is essentially, so if this, as this particular tenor is less than 1 year, so this is extrapolation, but the same formula holds for interpolation. So in this case, suppose we are calculating the yield for 1.5167 years. We have the yield for 1 year and we have the yield for 2 years. So this lies between 0.1120 and 0.1230. So same formula which is being used, but this is now interpolation, and the spot yield curve is 0.1177. And subsequently, the spot rate for 2.5306 is 0.1469. So similarly, we use, from this we calculate the discount factors. We're using discrete compounding. So 1 divided by 1 plus rate of interest raised to the power time period. In this case, these are the year fracs: 0.5 years, 1.5 years, 2.5 years. So using these, we compute the forward yield curve. So in this case, 0.1232 is essentially the rate of interest which will be applicable from 30th June 2021 till 30th June 2022. And 0. Which is calculated using this function, discount factor 1 divided by discount factor 2 raised to the power 1 divided by T2 minus T1 minus 1. Last multiplied by 100, it's just to convert that to the number. And the second term, which is 0.1907, is essentially the rate of interest which is applicable from 30th June 2022 till 30th June 2023. And all these are based on the present day yield curve. So every day the yield curve changes, and every day these estimations will change. So every day my swap valuation also will change. So this is the swap valuation as on, in this case, 31st December 2020, because the yield curve is taken as of 31st December 2020. So the receive cash flows. So receive essentially is the fixed, which is 0.17600. This was the rate of interest which was typically arrived at, or at the start of the swap, which was on 30th June 2020. So that rate holds good. So in this case, every cash flow is this principal, which is 100 million multiplied by 0.1760% multiplied by the period, which is 1.0139. So you have 178,444 USD for every year. This is a received cash flow because you are receiving fixed. On the pay side, cash flows USD, pay floating. So first year cash flow is computed based on the principal, which is 100 million, multiplied by the rate of interest, which is first floating rate, which is 0.1600%, multiplied by the period, which is 1.0139. And subsequent, the cash flows will be based on these forward yield curves computed, which is the rate of interest, which is applicable from 30th June 2021 to 30th June 2022, and this rate, which is 0.1907, which is applicable from 30th June 2022 to 30th June 2023. So based on these yield curves, yield rates, we are calculating the pay cash flows. So which is 124,993 and 193,319. So then you have the net cash flows, which is how much you're receiving less how much you're paying. As you can see in the first two cash flows, you have positive, and the last one, since the pay cash flows is much more than the receipt, you have negative net cash flow. Then you calculate the present value of this cash flows. So all these cash flows, what is the value now? So the present value of 1 year is cash flow 16,214. The present value of 2 year cash flow, these are all multiplied by the respective discount factors. So we have 53,416 and negative 14,874 after 3 years is valuing negative 819. And you sum these, so which is my NPV, which is giving us for 54,811. So this is a positive NPV or NTM. Since this particular counterparty is paying floating, and the floating rate interest has the benchmark has actually come down. So essentially, they are paying less and receiving the same amount. So the NPV is a positive value, which is good for the counterparty. So that's how we do the swap valuation. So same principles of pricing are used in order to value the swap at a future valuation date or settlement date after the swap has been dealt with by both counterparties. So we come to the end of this particular presentation of interest rate swap pricing and valuation.